Hello and welcome to the Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed, and today we're going to continue with our Korps of Krieg videos by having a look at their organisation and their weaponry that they use on the field of battle. Now, the Korps of Krieg's organisation is relatively straightforward in the guard sense. It's pretty structured as you would expect. However, there are a few different elements in the Death Korps which need to be highlighted for anyone who is interested in the Korps of Krieg. Now, typically their squad organisation is that of Guard Standard, although they do tend towards larger units with a minimum of 10 men, plus a Watchmaster who leads them, which is in replacement of a Sergeant. Now, they usually have the support in the squad of a Voxcaster, which is a long-range radio, and a heavy weapon, which I will talk a little bit more about later. Now, there are heavy weapons squads in the Korps of Krieg, usually made up of 6 guardsmen made into 3 two-man teams. There are also Grenadier squads who have 10-man units, and they are veterans who are handpicked by their Watchmasters to serve as heavy infantry. Their role is seen as superior to that of other roles in the Korps of Krieg, and if they survive their time in the Grenadier squads, they will become Watchmasters themselves. Korps platoons of infantry consist of 6 infantry squads led by a lieutenant and his platoon command squad. There are also separate heavy weapons platoons which are led by similarly armed combat squads, but composed instead of 9 heavy weapons squads, although a heavy weapons platoon is rarer than that of an infantry platoon. At full strength, an infantry company will often consist of 10 infantry platoons and 1 heavy weapon platoon, and will be led by a company commander and will include a varying number of grenadier squads mounted on mechanised transports, for a total, roughly, of 700 guardsmen. Now, a unique position within the Korps of Krieg is that of the Quartermaster, a role whose origins lie in the atomic wastelands of Krieg's Civil War. During the Civil War, every weapon mattered and every piece of equipment was also very useful, and unfortunately being injured whilst in a toxic wasteland was not good for your survival chances, meaning usually a slow, lingering death as you were poisoned by both radiation and airborne toxins. The Quartermasters were sent out to retrieve the weapons and materials that were left behind by these dead and dying Kriegsmen, and coming across many of their fellow soldiers, they thought it better that they ended the soldier's life rather than allow them to continue dying this very slow death, then retrieving their war gear for the military. Nowadays it's known as giving the blessings of the Emperor's peace, and performing these mercy killings has continued off Krieg and into their standard regiment structure, where a quartermaster will usually walk the field of battle after it is concluded, retrieving weapons and euthanizing any soldiers who are too wounded to reach a medic in time to survive, but at the same time will be dying slowly as it's seen. Now, quartermasters are chosen during training for their mental aptitude and faith, or having survived against the odds on the battlefield. And potential quartermasters are also given additional training to their standard guardsman training in both tech law to identify useful weapons, field medicine just to identify whether or not a guardsman is dying, and indoctrination into the Imperial cult, this meaning that they can give some last rites to a dying soldier even if they're not the full range of rites that would be given by a standard ecclesiastical member. Moving back onto the composition of a regiment, a company of tank or artillery usually consists of 3 combat vehicles and several support vehicles, although any command for the artillery company is usually located in a light centaur vehicle. Now, several siege regiments will be put together in what is known as a line corps, a group of several regiments operating at the same front, while several line corps will form a siege army. Some regiments will also be formed into an assault corps, which have large numbers of tanks and armoured vehicles, and are usually used to advance before the enemy and assist siege regiments when in siege combat. Now, moving off the composition of the Krieg armies, I want to talk a little bit about their equipment, which is obviously quite distinct. Many of you will recognise the respirator that they use along with the greatcoat and the helmet, and I'm just going to explain them in a bit more detail now. Now, the greatcoat, which is a large thick coat you see many Kriegsmen wearing, is a distinctive part of their uniform. It's warm and waterproof, and it's made locally on Krieg of a thick cloth in varying colours. The greatcoat itself provides limited protection against ranged weaponry, but is further reinforced against biological and chemical agents through a chemical impregnation process, which gives it a rather pungent smell. However, its resistance is what is sought after, not how it smells, plus if you're wearing a respirator, I doubt it matters. Now, a soldier's regimental tag has a distinctive colour and shape, such as a red square or a green triangle, and will be assigned by the High Commander prior to a campaign and is stitched onto the greatcoat's collar. Matching trousers, or pants if you're in America, are held close to the legs through leg bindings, while the standard issue low marching boots use hobnails for grip. Now, the helmet is a standard issue Mark 9 helmet and is made of plasteel and constructed to ensure a good fit around a gas mask. Ventilation is also provided through a top spine, which has its own internal ventilation filter to keep out biological and chemical agents. Plasteel shoulder pads are buckled to the Greatcoat and embossed with rank insignia, in the case of the Watchmasters and higher ranks. When worn together with the Respirator, the Death Korps soldier in full uniform is completely sealed against any contaminated environment. Obviously, the officers' uniforms are often tailor-made to the individual and made from superior quality material, as per the Munitorum's orders actually, although the Kriegsmen very rarely care about such ornamentation. They also wear a variation of the Mark IX helmet with decoration and a red sash across their battle gear for identification purposes. Now, the personal gear of the Krieg is relatively straightforward, although the most noticeable part of their gear is the Respirator. Now, this is a 3-part unit issued to every Death Korps guardsman and gives them the ability to operate in any toxic environment, with a regulator attached for filtering out toxins and producing antidotes for different poisoning, and allowing the Kriegsmen to operate in toxic environments for long periods of time. Now, there are both air and water pipes protected by exterior hoses, which screw into the gas mask through a brass breather valve, which contains an additional filter and non-return valve. Now, the gas mask itself consists of a bag, a screw attachment for the breather valve, and eyepieces made of a double layer of toughened glass treated with anti-fogging compounds. Staff officers who spend a lot of time inside sealed command bunkers are issued with more lightweight respirators in order for them to operate for long periods of time without feeling stifled. However, the respirators will not have any of the additional regulators, and so will not be able to deal with long-term toxic environments. Now, the Kriegsman soldier is also usually equipped with leather webbing and a backpack which provides storage for any equipment on the move, and they are also given a small entrenching tool which is standard issue to all Krieg guardsmen and worn on the belt, although large tools and shovels will be provided as needed. Now, onto the weapons of the Kriegsmen. Every Death Korps infantryman is given a standard issue Lucius Pattern number 98 lasgun as their primary weapon. Now, these operate at a higher charge rate than other lasguns and gives the weapon more punch, but unfortunately drains the power pack after only 25 shots, and also has a slower recharge rate. They are also issued one standard number 38 Frag Grenade, although more will be provided prior to an attack, as well as a crack grenade. Finally, they also have a close combat weapon, which is a heavy-bladed 45cm long sword bayonet, which can be attached to the lasgun's bayonet lug at the bottom of the barrel. Krieg officers also arm themselves, usually with a las pistol and a sabre, which is a holdover from their Death Rider days. Now, a popular special weapon amongst the Death Korps are melter guns, which are preferred in support roles, although they do use other types of weapon, and a heavy bolter is preferred in heavy weapon squads. Of course, they will use whatever they're given in order to carry out their orders. Finally, the vehicles of the Death Korps of Krieg are actually quite unique. Now, during the rebellion, the increasingly under-equipped militia began to create their own combat vehicles, often variations of civilian vehicles, and were heavily modified. Since the conclusion of the Civil War, the vehicles have continued to serve in limited fashion in other conflicts, meaning that the Krieg armoured battalions will usually have a distinctive shape to other armoured battalions. For the most part, Death Korps siege and armoured regiments make use of Lehman Russ battle tanks and its variants, and with a preference towards siege tanks such as Demolishers and Thunderers. Even the Destroyer is used by Krieg units. These tanks are often heavily modified to survive toxic environments and trench-cross battlefields. Typically armed with dozer blades, trench rails and additional filters, they prevent all poisonous atmosphere from affecting the crew or the engine of the vehicle and allow them to operate beside their Death Korps brethren on the toxic battlefield. Siege regiments, funnily enough, do not normally use the ubiquitous Chimera for transport, instead preferring the Gorgon to transport infantry across no man's land where necessary, when command and grenadier squads use a Centaur. So this is everything I wanted to mention this week about the equipment and the organisation of the Death Korps of Krieg. We may finalise the videos with one final video on the Death Riders, who are one of the unique elements of the Death Korps. However, at this stage we've virtually gone over everything we need to. If there's anything you'd like to add, do put it into the comments below. Also, we will be starting the wave of newer videos on different factions of the 40k universe next. So I haven't chosen what that will be yet, so do vote for that in the comments below if there is a general preference for what you want to see come next on the Vaults of Terra. And of course, if you have anything you'd like to say to me, you can send us a personal message or go to the Vaults of Terra forum, which is called the Vox Relay, linked in the description below. If you go there, you can also ask any questions that need to be asked, and the community can help provide any answers if there is anyone who knows about it over there. So that's everything I wanted to say today. See you next time on the Vaults of Terra.